We have all enjoyed Anne Rice's books about vampires, witches, and in her latest, A Genie. They have won her a legion of devoted fans. She is an author, an activist. She's not afraid to speak her mind. And her newest book is called Servant of the Bones. Anne Rice, welcome to our program, and thanks for joining us here at CBS.
Thank you very much.
It is almost time for your annual Halloween party in New Orleans. Would you share with the crowd here what happens at these parties?
Oh, it's every year it gets bigger and it gets more complex. But last year we had 8,000 people.
Man.
I gave it last year. It's the fan club that really does it. Lestat the vampire has his own fan club. And this year they're doing it at the Fairmont Hotel the Saturday night before Halloween. And I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have 6,000 or 7,000 overflow probably.
And what happened last year? What happens at these parties?
Well,
because they've become traditional now.
Last year I opened up St. Elizabeth's Orphanage, which is this huge building that I had bought and redone as a private residence. And I have a big doll collection there. And
Really?
we opened up all 3 floors of it, and we had, you know, 18th century, 19th century dancers waltzing in the chapel ballroom, and then we had rock down in the green ballroom, and I was outside with a lovely star of Interview with the Vampire, Kirsten Dunst, the girl who played Claudia in the movie. She came down, and Warner Brothers lent her one of her gowns, and she sat outside with me on a Mardi Gras float, and we talked to people
And
all night
is there
long.
food and drink at these parties?
We have a Louisiana beer company, Abita, that bottled a special label for us, you know, I'm a nice cold victim, drink me now or something. I don't know what it said. And then we had little bottles of wine, and we had 8,000 people packed in that building, just roaming from floor to floor and event to event. My son Christopher ran Chris's Cabaret on the 3rd floor where he sang Broadway hits, and it was just a wonderful time. People put up with a lot, though.
Now, you're on tour promoting Servant of the Bones.
Right.
This is quite different from a recent book tour in which you staged your own funeral, I understand.
Well, that was last year, yes. I just began my first book signing in New Orleans on July 11th of last year with a funeral. Fortunately, the cemetery was only a half block from the bookstore. But we did have I did buy a coffin, which I still have, my own coffin, you know, which is really kind of neat. But we had to, you know, carpet it and do a few things because so many people want to get in and out of this coffin and be photographed. Anyway, I got in the coffin. I was in a glass hearse. The hearse had beautiful mules with plumes, you know.
What is it like getting into a coffin
when
you know you're not dead?
Well, I thought, this is my chance to know. I'm not going to know next time, you know. I mean, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I put my hands, I was in a wedding gown, the bride of death. So I lay there in the coffin with my arms like this, and my helpful staff had put all these little fans in there because they were sure I was going to die. The temperature was 105.
Oh, man.
But I wasn't hot. Anyway, I lay there, the hearse pulled out of the graveyard, and I could hear those jazz musicians playing that soft second lining, famous New Orleans jazz.
Sure.
And it took, like, I guess 15 minutes to get out and down the street to the bookstore, and then they got me out with a whole lot of jostling, you know, and don't drop her, you're leaning too far to the left, look out, back up, you're going to drop the end. Finally, the coffin is set down, and the lid pops open, and I look up, and there are all these people. You know, there's no crowd control or anything like that. We don't think of anything like that. There's people everywhere. It was incredible.
You know, they have this thing here in town. It's called the Graveline Tour. And they have a hearse, and you get in the hearse, and they take you to where famous movie stars have died, and they tell you how they met their deaths.
You're kidding me.
Would I kid you?
You are kidding me.
Would I kid you?
Why have we not thought of that in New Orleans?
Well, the only thing is, I often thought of going on it, except that when I ride in the hearse, I don't want to know it. You know,
I mean, I shouldn't say. That's it. See, I want to know, so I know now. So next time I won't.
Where do the genies and the vampires and the goblins and the gremlins? Where do these characters come from in your past? In reading about you, it said that you were brought up intensively Catholic.
That's true.
And I was just wondering if anything in your religious upbringing has to do with the kinds of stories and the kind of material that you write about.
Oh, I think everything.
Yeah.
Everything in my Catholic background does. In this book, Azrael, this ghost, is passionately concerned with saving his soul. You know, he gets tricked into being made this genie or this ghost, the servant of the bones. And when he comes alive in the 20th century and witnesses a murder on Fifth Avenue, he wants to make things right. And he's very concerned that he can redeem himself, that he can yet find the stairway to heaven. And he was made a ghost in 600 BC Babylon. Well, all of this gets back to my childhood grounding in religion and in Scripture, my love of stories about angels and saints. And also, I think one thing that Catholicism does for you, without question, is no matter where you go or what you do all your life, you want to know why you're here. And you want to know where you came from, and you want to know if you're really doing something worthwhile.
Do you remember your catechism, your Baltimore catechism?
I remember a few of them, yeah.
Why did God make me?
God made us to show forth his goodness and to share with us his everlasting happiness in heaven.
That's very
Nobody
good.
has ever asked me that question. What three things are necessary to make a sin mortal? I don't know if I remember
I don't remember that one at all.
That one, no. Actually, I don't remember the answer, but I know there are three things.
Was your religious teaching, did it frighten you in any way?
No, no. It was our whole world. I mean, this was pre-Vatican II, 1940s and 50s.
Same here.
Went to Catholic school every day in a blue skirt and white blouse, and went to Mass and took the body and blood of Christ in Holy Communion, and it was a beautiful world of not only stained glass windows and murals, but of faith that went beyond that.
And structure.
Absolutely.
And also accountability for one's actions.
Terrific.
That somebody is watching and you are accountable for what you do.
Not only that, but you have to be better. You have to be kind. It isn't enough just to obey all the rules. You have to be good to people. You have to be kind. You have to do something.
And how close to your faith are you now?
Well, 20 years ago, I published Interview with the Vampire, my first novel, and right off in that novel, Louis starts talking about why are we here, why does God suffer me to live, what is the meaning of all this, and I was able to use that immortal character to talk about the things that concerned me better than I'd ever been able to use any realistic character. Now, 20 years later, I see myself as just advanced on that spiritual quest. You know, I hope the storytelling is thrilling. I hope the storytelling is good. You know, in fact, I don't think you get up there on the bestseller list in America if you can't tell a story.
This is true.
You just don't.
That's true.
So, but behind the story and behind the spectacle and behind the drama is always that spiritual intensity. Why are we here? And to me,
and what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is evil.
And what do you do in a situation that's completely hopeless? Like, there's Lestat. He's a vampire. You know, he has never been bad at anything in his life, so he wants to be good at being a vampire. What does that mean? You know, it puts him in a terrific dilemma. But this book, Servant of the Bones, is a great release for me because I've written 5 books with Lestat, and it was really time to move on to a different kind of spirit. And for some reason, this was a great liberation.
Now, when you talk about something different, moving on to something different, you know, we've talked about the vampires and the witches and the genie, which is a part of Servant of the Bones. You wrote a novel some years ago called Cry to Heaven, which dealt with the castrati back in the 19th century in Italy.
Yes.
How much of a divergence was that for you? What attracted you to that topic?
I'll tell you what,
and where in your own list of favorites does that particular book come?
There are a lot of people who feel a very special feeling about that book because of its grounding in music. And all of my love of music went into it, all of my love of opera, and all of my love of Italy, which is considerable.
Same.
I've been there 3 times. I want to go more and more. I was just there in June. The castrati were outcasts, and they were super beings. You know, they were castrated when they were little children, and they could become superstars. And they would travel all over Europe, and people would throw flowers in their path, and they would be celebrated by kings and queens and huge crowds, and yet they were forbidden to marry. And they were outcasts. They were objects of ridicule behind, I guess, the painted fan. You know, there would be the little snicker, you know. And that's what attracted me to them. I saw them as metaphors for the outsider in all of us, just as the vampire was a metaphor for the outsider. He looks human, but he's not. He's really, you know, got this incredible gloom inside him that he can't get rid of. He has to kill the very thing he's attracted to. Well, the castrati get all this adulation. They're like the rock stars of their time, and yet they can't really be part of all the people who are
adoring them and watching them and applauding them and cheering them.
I think the movie Farinelli that came out 2 years ago got it very well. It got it, I liked the movie a lot.
We're with Anne Rice. Her newest book is called Servant of the Bones. The phone is up and running. We'll be right back with you as time permits after these messages. We are with Anne Rice, and here is Anna on the toll-free in Longview, Texas. Hello.
Yes, I was just wondering if Anne Rice has ever had any experience with anything supernatural herself?
No, ma'am, I have not, except for a couple of prophetic dreams, really, really prophetic dreams. That a dream before my daughter got sick with leukemia. I had a dream that she was sick and withering, very, very frightening to have something that prophetic happen. But fortunately, I've had many, many other nightmares since that have proved to be not prophetic. So, but I've never seen a ghost or a spirit or anything like that.
There's your answer, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, have a nice evening. Bye-bye now. In reading about you this afternoon, I read that your first name when you were born was Howard. Is that true?
That's true. My parents did that to me.
Howard Rice.
No, Howard O'Brien.
Or O'Brien, I'm sorry.
Yes, Stan brought me the nice name of Rice. Nice and short to sign in books.
Why Howard?
My dad and mother thought that was a great idea. It was my dad's name. He didn't like it. Everybody called him Mike. But he thought, you know, we'll name this girl Howard, and she'll have a head start in life, and it'll be just marvelous for her. Well, as soon as I got to the first grade, I changed it to Ann. You know, I just told Sister Hyacinth when she said, "What is your name, little girl?" or whatever, I said Ann. And my mother, being just as crazy then as she had been at my baptism, said, "Well, if she wants to be Ann, she's Ann."
She's Ann. And
so that was it.
And it's stuck. Now, has it been legally changed, or are you still Howard on a piece of paper somewhere?
I've never legally changed it. So occasionally when we buy a piece of property in Louisiana, I have to sign Howard, Allen, O'Brien, Ann, Rice, etc. You know.
Oh,
but because it's on book covers, because I have copyrights, it's a legal name.
I got you.
I'm Ann Rice.
Now, you said that your mother was just as crazy when you entered the first grade as she was when you were born.
Right.
What does that mean?
Well, she wanted to rear 4 perfectly healthy children and 4 geniuses. And so she told us from the earliest time I can remember that we could be anything we wanted. We could be poets, we could be writers, we could be dancers, we could be film stars, we could be presidents, we could be anything.
The world was your oyster.
Absolutely. And she would read us stories about the life of Dickens and the life of the Bronte sisters, and she would tell us the plots of wonderful movies.
So she was an intellectual woman.
Yes, she was what I call a first-generation intellectual. My father was, too. They came from old, big sort of Irish families, and my father had 8 brothers and sisters. My mother, only 3 lived to maturity, but there had been 8 babies, you know. But they were the first generation in each family to really read books, to read the classics, to love classical music, and they gave us everything. It was just absolutely wonderful, and they were very tolerant. And occasionally they were very offbeat, and naming me Howard was part of it.
I would say, was there anything else along the way equally as eccentric?
Well, my mother used to let us write all over the walls, and I find that I do that now in my office. She just believed in total freedom of expression. She was ahead of her time. I mean, later in the 60s, all of California would subscribe to these beliefs. I mean, she was into Gaylord Hauser, the great nutritionist.
Yes.
I mean, and little did I know that by 1970, all of that nutritional information would be common knowledge. So maybe she was a bit of an oracle. I don't know.
In the Toronto newspaper, somebody wrote of you, and I'm sure you've read this quote, that Ann Rice dares to be eccentric on a grand scale in terms of the topics that you pick, the enormous research you give to your projects, and the immense detail on which you paint on your canvas. How do you respond to that, eccentric on a grand scale?
I love it.
Yeah.
It makes me very, very happy. I have written, you know, I write all over the walls and the radio and the desk and the computer, and I have written the monumental passionate on the radio, which is just to remind me of what I want to accomplish with my books. It's actually a description by a Viennese writer of Beethoven's music.
You wrote,
I just love it.
You wrote The Vampire Story in 1976.
1974, really, but 76.
It took Hollywood till 2 years ago, Interview with the Vampire with Tom Cruise, to get up to it. What took that so long to happen?
Well, it was owned by Paramount for 10 years and simply regarded as too transgressive to make. Too transgressive.
Meaning?
Well, it's about 2 male vampires and a little girl vampire. And the person who bought it, Richard Silbert, the talented art director, was the president of Paramount when it was bought, but he left Paramount before the ink was dry. And so the new people coming in, Don Simpson and Michael Eisner, simply didn't want to make it. Eventually, it reverted to me, because unlike 99% of authors, I had a reversion clause. If you don't make it in 10 years, I get it back. And eventually David Geffen really became the person who got it made.
True.
He was infatuated with the book. He had the power and he had the courage to simply make it really exactly as it was written. And he cast Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise as the 2 vampires.
So you anticipate my obvious question. As author of the book, did you like the movie? The answer is yes, you did.
I loved it.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it. It's very upsetting to watch, but I loved it.
Yeah, let me talk to Don. Put Don. Don in Springfield, Missouri. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. First of all, Tom, I enjoy watching you every night.
Thank you.
You're very cool.
Thank you.
Yes, Miss Rice, I was going to ask, is there a sequel in the works?
To the vampire, you mean the vampire Lestat?
Yeah, Lestat, and then after that, maybe Queen of the Damned.
Well, actually, all those properties belong to Warner Brothers, and they're very soon going to revert back to me. You know, if they don't begin principal photography soon on the vampire Lestat, it'll come back to me. As of now, I don't think there's any activity at all. Everybody connected with the original picture has gone in different directions. Tom Cruise has gone on to be smashingly successful with Mission Impossible. Neil Jordan went on to make Michael Collins. David Geffen left, and that really was the deciding factor. He went with Katzenberg and Spielberg to make DreamWorks. And so they're just lying there. They're lying there, languishing, and I'm going to bring them home soon.
And if you bring them home, then how do they get back into the motion picture production business? Well, if somebody wants them, we'll start talking. Yeah.
Yes, and we will go to a person with passion like the passion David had, you know, and David could not take them with him to DreamWorks. I mean, he had to leave them at Warner Brothers. We'll find someone, and maybe we'll work through the actors this time. I don't know. We have such a crop of incredibly brilliant young actors right now. Gary Oldman and Antonio Banderas and Tim Holt and all kinds of just, I can't even remember their names. I mean, there's so many coming up that can do everything from Shakespeare to New York street jive. I don't know. You know, we'll get it done. But,
as Sister used to say, we'll see what happens in God's good time.
Exactly.
Don, I hope that answers your question, and thank you for your compliment, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We can always write really, really loud letters to Warner Brothers saying, why don't you make these movies? That won't hurt.
And may not help. We're with Anne Rice. The book is called Servant of the Bones.
Probably won't help at all.
Back after these messages. With Anne Rice, whose newest novel is called Servant of the Bones, here is Maggie on the toll-free in Chicago. Hi, Maggie. Welcome to CBS.
Well, hi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Well, good for you.
Well, yes, that's right. Good for me.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have a question for Anne Rice, Maggie?
Yes.
Now
Yes,
would be
I
the,
do.
Now would be the time to ask it.
Yes, I wanted to ask if I could, Anne, if you...
Maggie, go and turn down the sound on your television set because you're hearing yourself on a 3.5-second delay.
Okay,
and
that's what it is. All right.
It's making you nuts, Maggie.
All
and
right.
it's making
Let me
us
try it
even
again.
more nuts, Maggie. Okay.
You're so kind.
Have you done that now?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
All right, good. Thanks. Thank you. I wanted to ask Anne if I could, what if you plan on dressing up for Halloween, and if so, what you plan to wear.
Well, I'll be signing books on Halloween in a graveyard in Miami Beach. And I'll probably be wearing a sort of long velvet Babylonian robe that I have worn all through the book tour to kind of, you know, look a little bit like Azrael, my main character. Not really look like him, but look like we're friends, you know.
Yeah.
And probably a beaded headpiece. But I don't know. I've never been in a graveyard in Miami, and I don't know what this is going to be like.
People are dying to get in there.
But I love graveyards. I mean, in Italy,
You're kidding.
but in Miami, even though I live in Miami Beach, I have a condo there. I have never actually seen a graveyard in Miami.
What does your husband think of all this?
Well, my husband is a painter and a poet and very actively involved in his own work all the time. I think he's...
But when he hears that you're getting into a glass casket for a book signing...
He's alarmed. He's a little alarmed.
Say,
he's a little concerned, you know. He's concerned. I have to reassure him. It's really okay. I mean, it was like when we bought St. Elizabeth's, 47,000 square feet, you know, an orphanage, a whole city block. I said, it's going to be all right. It's going to be fine, you know. He drove up there, looked at it, and said, well, okay.
Okay.
But he's
well, Howard, this is certainly a fine mess you've gotten us into this time. Huh?
He said, if you die and leave me that place, I'll kill you. Or something to that, or I'll come back and haunt you. And sometimes I think of giving it to him as a gift. It's community property, everything. But we've been married 35 years as of the 14th of October.
Congratulations.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
congratulations.
everything is shared, and he doesn't share the madness all the time, but he certainly shares the excitement one way or another.
Maggie, I'm glad you called, and I hope we've answered your question.
Thank you. And there's one other thing that comes to mind that I wanted to ask also.
Okay.
Has Anne's husband ever painted her? And if so, has it been an abstract painting? I think that he sounds like a very talented artist, and he could probably create something really beautiful of you.
Well, that's a wonderful question. He has painted me. He actually, the painting is on my wall, and he did a large painting with the picture of the photograph of that he took the painting from behind it, and made a collage of pages of Interview with the Vampire on this canvas, and it actually belongs to me, and I've thought many times of trying to just reproduce some prints of the painting. It was based on a little photo that my sister took, and I love it, absolutely love it. But he's done another painting of me too, the first day after a facelift. And I don't know if you know what people look like after a facelift, but I was completely wrapped in white bandages, and I had my finger up to say, first day. My eyes were all black and blue, and it's just quite an incredible painting.
I never would have guessed.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity to have a conversation with both of you, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Good night now.
All right, bye.
What a charming lady.
How extensive was the work?
The facelift?
Yes.
Both times it was the whole thing.
Both
They just
times.
tightened everything up, you know. I don't know. I wanted to do it. I like it. It's fun.
I mean, it looked
it's fun
terrific,
if nothing goes wrong.
but I never would have guessed. And like you say, the second time was there. Does it?
The first time I didn't look quite like myself afterwards. The second time, the other doctor gave me back my face. I looked like I wanted to look, you know, like I had looked before. That's really all it is. You suddenly look in the mirror and you see somebody who's not you, and that person is sagging in a way or wrinkling in a way that is giving you a sour expression or a grim expression that's not you. And you think, well, let's just lift this, you know, come on. And that's the best kind of facelift.
Yes, it is.
Just a tightening up.
I'm a little short on time, but I must ask you about your other name. You're also known as A.N. Roquelaure?
Roquelaure.
And you write books that are described as...
pornography.
Well, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Right, pornography.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
What's the wellspring for that? Where does that come from?
I wanted to write a kind of S&M pornography that was fun for people to read and didn't involve anything gruesome or literal, a fairy tale that would take them away from the headlines and the terrible things that happen in real life, where they could play games of domination and submission, and there'd be a lot of roses and beautiful candlelight and so forth. And I wrote 3 books called the Sleeping Beauty Trilogy that are filled with that kind of fantasy in a fairy tale land in the Middle Ages. And they're, I think, a lot of fun. I wouldn't say they were the Disneyland of S&M because Disneyland might sue me.
I understand that. But besides the roses and the candles and probably some music, huh? Are there any, like, little handcuffs or stuff?
Oh, definitely. Oh, people are always being tied up, of course, you know, and enslaved and dominated and forced to have incredible orgasms against their will, you know. It's just, but it's all, nobody's really hurt. The idea is you can escape into this, you know.
But a little...
It's a temporary period that these princes and princesses go through in this kingdom.
Are these still
where
in the
they become slaves. Oh, yes, they're all over.
Good.
They're all over. In fact, I've just been all through the Bible Belt on this book tour, and I would say that the beauty books are as popular there as Servant of the Bones or any of the other books I've written.
Are they going to make any movies about those?
No, I won't allow that. That I will not allow because I don't trust visual pornography.
I got you.
You know, verbal pornography I can control, but visual pornography.
Are you on the internet at all? I mean, can I find...
I have a home page.
Okay.
There's a home page called Anne Rice Com that my cousin Danny Manning has done, and I also answer questions on Salon magazine.
Very good. I really appreciate your making our program part of your tour. I've enjoyed your work for many, many years, and it's just fascinating to meet you in person. You're something else, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
very,
you
very
much.
welcome.
The time has just flown by. I've loved it.
Thank you. Anne Rice is the guest. It's the Sleeping Beauty Trilogy.
Yes.
Okay.
I would have brought you a copy. You know.
Yeah, to hell with this guy who's 600 BC. Let's go where they have the music and the handcuffs.
Okay, so what do I do now, Tom? Are we finished?
We'll be, in just a second here, we will be. Anne Rice is the guest, and the newest book, which is out now in hardcover, is called Servant of the Bones. We'll be right back with the legendary B.B. King after these messages.
I'm sorry.